I spent the last 3 hours of my career serving champagne to people who thought I was about to lose everything. The irony was so thick you could have spread it on toast. But let me start where the good stories start, with the lie that changed everything. My name is Dorothy Washington, and at 63 years old, I retired from Caldwell and Associates, a mid-sized marketing firm where I'd worked for 38 years. Started as a receptionist in 1987 when the building still had ashtrays on every desk and secretaries were called secretaries without the corporate rebranding. I climbed slowly, deliberately: copywriter, senior copywriter, creative director, eventually VP of creative services. Not bad for a black woman who started answering phones. The retirement party was scheduled for Friday, October 10th. In the office's glass-walled conference room that overlooked downtown like a fishbowl studying the city, 73 people were invited. 68 confirmed. The company was paying for catering past appetizers and to open bars, because Caldwell and Associates prided itself on treating employees like family, which is corporate speak for "we'll throw you a nice party" instead of decent wages. But here's what nobody at that party knew. 2 weeks before my retirement, I told everyone I was broke. Not just struggling, not just retirement's expensive. I told them I'd lost almost everything in a bad investment scheme, that my 401k had been decimated by a financial advisor who turned out to be running a Ponzi scheme, that I was facing the possibility of losing my condo and might need to move in with my daughter in another state. I cried in the break room. I accepted sympathy with a trembling voice. I let people see me looking at studio apartment listings on my computer when they walked by my desk. It was all a lie. Every single word. The truth? I was wealthier than anyone in that building, except maybe Gerald Caldwell himself. The CEO who'd inherited the company from his father and spent more time on his yacht than in board meetings. I had $2.3 million in diversified investments, a paid-off condo worth $750,000, and a pension that would pay me more per month than most of my former colleagues earned in salary. Why lie? Because I wanted to know who would stay. Let me back up. 6 months before retirement, something shifted in how people treated me. It was subtle at first. Younger colleagues who used to seek my advice started routing questions to my deputy, Marcus, instead. My assistant, Kelly, started triple-checking my calendar just to make sure you didn't forget anything. People would speak slowly when presenting to me, like I'd suddenly lost the ability to understand English. When I suggested a campaign direction, someone would inevitably say, "That's interesting, Dorothy." But let's hear what the younger perspective thinks. The younger perspective, as if I'd aged out of cultural relevance the moment I submitted my retirement paperwork at my annual review. My last one, my boss Trevor, a 42-year-old who wore sneakers with suits and said synergy unironically, told me, "You've had a great run, Dorothy." Really pioneering stuff back in the day. We're excited to see what fresh blood brings to the role. Back in the day, like I was a museum exhibit. The breaking point came at a team lunch. We were celebrating landing a major client, and everyone was buzzing about the pitch I'd led. Correction, the pitch I'd written that Marcus presented because Trevor thought Marcus has better energy for the client demographic. The pitch landed us a $3 million account. At lunch, Trevor raised his glass and said to Marcus, "For that killer pitch." I waited for him to correct himself, to acknowledge that I'd written every word. He didn't. Marcus didn't either. Nobody did that night. I sat in my condo, the one I'd bought in 1995, when banks were still surprised that a single black woman could afford a down payment in that neighborhood, and I made a list. I titled it, "People Who Actually Give a Damn." I wrote 3 names, then crossed out 2 because I wasn't sure. I stared at that list for an hour, then called my daughter Simone. "Mom, what's wrong?" she asked. Simone's good at reading my silences. "You think people like me because of who I am, or because of what I can do for them?" "Mom, where is this coming from?" I told her about the lunch, about back in the day, about the slow fade from relevant to relic. She was quiet for a long time. "Think you need to test it," she said finally. "Test what?" Test who shows up when you're not useful anymore. That's how the lie was born. I planned it carefully. First, I told my closest work friend, Patricia, during a coffee break. Patricia and I had been work adjacent for 20 years, same company. Different departments, the kind of friendship that's real in the building and vanishes outside it. I trusted her with my fabricated crisis because I knew she'd spread it. Patricia was kind, but terrible with secrets. "Patricia," I said, my voice shaking just enough. "Can I talk to you about something?" We moved to a quiet corner. I told her the story: bad financial advisor, Ponzi scheme, lost savings, possible foreclosure. I even showed her a fake letter I'd mocked up from a collections agency. Her eyes went wide. "Dorothy, oh my God, have you talked to a lawyer?" "I can't afford one," I said, letting my voice break. "I'm trying to figure out what to do. I might have to move in with Simone." Patricia hugged me. "We'll figure this out. Let me ask my husband. He knows some people." "Please don't tell anyone," I said. "I'm embarrassed." She guaranteed she'd tell everyone by lunch. By Monday, the Whisper Network had done its job. People looked at me with pity. "Kelly brought me homemade soup because you must be stressed." Marcus asked if I needed help with paperwork or anything. Trevor pulled me into his office and said, "Dorothy, I heard about your situation. If you need to extend your employment, we might be able to work something out." "I appreciate that," I said, "but I think I need to stick to the plan." "Start over somewhere cheaper." "Bravey," he said, in a tone that meant something closer to foolish. The responses were educational. Some people avoided me entirely, like poverty was contagious. Others became over-solicitous in a way that felt performative. "How are you holding up?" They'd ask, loud enough for others to hear. But when I said, "Actually, it's been really hard," they'd say, "Well, hang in there," and walk away before I could elaborate. 3 people were different. Marcus, my deputy, asked if I'd eaten lunch yet. When I said no, he brought me a sandwich from the deli I liked. Didn't make a big deal out of it, just left it on my desk with a note. Figured you might be too busy to grab food. Kelly, my assistant, started staying late even though I told her she didn't have to. "I want to make sure everything's transitioned properly," she said, "so you can leave clean and not worry about loose ends." And Dolores. Dolores was the night janitor, Dominican woman in her 50s who spoke more Spanish than English, but had the kind of smile that translates in any language. We'd been hallway friends for years. Good morning. Good night. Cold today. That level. But after Patricia spread the word, Dolores started leaving coffee on my desk in the mornings. Not fancy coffee, instant coffee in a styrofoam cup, but hot, sweet, and there. One night when I was working late, Dolores came by with her cleaning cart and saw me staring at my computer. She didn't speak, just squeezed my shoulder and said something in Spanish that I didn't understand but felt anyway. Everyone else, silence, or worse. The loud silence of people who know you're struggling and decide it's not their problem. The retirement party arrived like a deadline. I wore a navy dress I'd bought on clearance specifically for this, nice enough to look professional. It's cheap enough to maintain the illusion. I'd sold my car 2 days before, not really, but I told everyone I had and taken the bus to work. Kelly picked me up at the bus stop around the corner because she happened to be driving by. I knew she wasn't, but I let her preserve the fiction. The conference room was decorated with silver balloons and a banner that said, "Congratulations, Dorothy." The catering company had set up stations with shrimp cocktail, mini quiches, and a chocolate fountain. 2 bartenders worked the bars. It probably cost the company $8,000, which was more than they'd given me in raises over the past 5 years combined. People arrived in waves. Colleagues from different departments, some I barely knew. Gerald Caldwell himself made an appearance, shaking my hand with the firm grip of a man who'd practiced in a mirror. "Dorothy," he said, "you've been the backbone of this company. We'll miss you." "Thank you, Gerald." "I heard about your situation," he said, lowering his voice. "If you ever need a reference, don't hesitate." A reference. Not a loan, not connections to financial help, not even an offer to look into what happened. A reference. "I appreciate that, I said. Trevor gave a speech. He talked about my pioneering work and my dedication and the example she set for all of us. He mentioned campaigns I'd led 20 years ago, but nothing recent. He made it sound like I'd already been retired for a decade. Then he said, and we want to make sure Dorothy leaves on a high note. We've taken up a collection for her retirement gift. He held up an envelope. People applauded. I opened it. Inside was a $500 Visa gift card and a card signed by most of the office. The messages ranged from best wishes to enjoy retirement. Generic, interchangeable $500. From a company that billed clients. $300 an hour for my work. I smiled and thanked everyone. I gave a short speech about gratitude and growth and how much the company had meant to me. I didn't mention that I'd made them millions in revenue. I didn't mention that I'd stayed through 3 rounds of layoffs when I could have gone elsewhere for more money. I didn't mention that I'd trained half the people in this room. I thanked them for the gift card and made a joke about how it would help with groceries. People laughed, but it was the uncomfortable laugh of people who don't know if a joke about poverty from a poor person is funny or sad. The party went on. People drank, ate, mingled. Conversations happened around me and sometimes included me, but mostly I was the guest of honor who people checked off a list. Said hi to Dorothy. Done. Around 8 p.m., the crowd started thinning. Trevor left early, got to get home to the kids. Gerald had left after the speech. Patricia hugged me and said, "Call me if you need anything," knowing she wouldn't answer by 8:30. The conference room looked like the aftermath of a wedding where the couple got divorced during the reception. Plates everywhere, cups on every surface. The chocolate fountain had chocolate hardening on the sides like geological strata. One balloon was already deflating, sinking toward the floor in slow motion. Kelly was picking up plates. Marcus was breaking down the bar. End. Dolores had arrived with her cart and was sweeping near the door. Everyone else was gone. I stood in the middle of the room and felt something I hadn't expected. Not vindication, but heartbreak, because I'd been right. "Kelly," I said, "you don't have to stay." "I know," she said, stacking cups. "But someone should, Marcus." He looked up from the recycling bin. "You trained me, Dorothy. Taught me everything I know about this job. Least I can do is clean up after your party." Dolores didn't speak, just smiled and kept sweeping. We worked in silence for a while. The 4 of us turning chaos back into order. When the room was clean, Kelly hugged me. "I'm going to miss you. I'll miss you too." Marcus shook my hand, then pulled me into a hug. "You deserved better than this place gave you." "Maybe," I said, "but I got what I needed." Dolores handed me a small wrapped package. "Parity," she said. "For you." Inside was a rosary. Not expensive. Wooden beads worn smooth. But hers, I cried then. Not performative tears for an audience. Real ones. "Gracias," I said, and she squeezed my hand after they left. I sat in the empty conference room and looked at the deflating balloon. My phone buzzed. A text from Simone. "How did it go?" "3 people stayed," I wrote back. "3's better than 0. 3's perfect." I corrected. I left the building for the last time at 9:47 p.m. The security guard, a young guy named James who I'd said good morning to for 6 years, looked up from his phone. "Heard it was your last day." "Ms. Washington." It was. "Sorry about your troubles," he said. "Hope things turn around." "They will," I said. "Thanks, James. You take care." I walked to the parking garage where my sold car was waiting and drove home. Not to a studio apartment I couldn't afford, but to my condo with a view of the park and the mortgage I'd paid off in 2015. The next morning, I woke up without an alarm for the first time in 38 years. I made coffee in my expensive machine. I sat on my balcony and watched the city wake up without me needing to be part of it. Simone called at 10 a.m. "So, what are you going to do now?" "Now I'm going to tell the truth." I said. I started with Kelly. I called her and asked if she wanted to have lunch. We met at a cafe downtown and I told her everything. Her mouth literally fell open. "You what?" "I made it up. All of it. Why?" to see who would stay. Kelly was quiet for a long time. Then she started laughing. "That's the most insane and brilliant thing I've ever heard." "You stayed?" I said. "That's what matters." "Of course I stayed. You taught me how to do my job. You let me take credit for ideas when my boss wasn't listening. You remembered my birthday every year. Most people forgot that stuff the moment I wasn't useful anymore." "Most people are idiots," Kelly said. "What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to invest in people who stay." I took Kelly, Marcus, and Dolores to dinner. A nice restaurant, the kind with cloth napkins and a wine list. I told them the truth. Marcus laughed so hard he cried. Kelly shook her head in disbelief. Dolores didn't entirely understand the story, but she understood the gesture. "I want to help you," I told them, "all of you, because you helped me when you thought I had nothing." Kelly wanted to go back to school for a design degree. I paid for it. Full tuition, books, housing. "Consider it a scholarship," I said, "from the Dorothy Washington Fund for people who give a damn." Marcus wanted to start his own agency, but didn't have startup capital. I became his first investor. "I'll be a silent partner," I said. "This is your vision, but I believe in you." Dolores wanted to bring her daughter from the Dominican Republic, but the immigration process was expensive and complicated. I hired a lawyer. 6 months later, her daughter arrived. "Why you do this?" Dolores asked me, tears streaming down her face. "'Cause you left me coffee when you thought I couldn't afford my own." Word got out, eventually. Patricia called 6 months after my retirement. "Dorothy, I heard a rumor that you're actually fine, that you were never broke." "That's true," I said. "So you lied to us. I tested you, and you failed." She sputtered, started to argue, then hung up. She never called again. Trevor sent me a LinkedIn message a year later. "Hey Dorothy, hope you're doing well. I'm starting a consulting firm and could use someone with your experience. Interested in coming on board?" I replied, "Hi Trevor, thanks for reaching out. I'm retired, but I remember at my retirement party you said you were excited about fresh blood. I suggest you pursue that. Best, Dorothy." Gerald Caldwell ran into me at a restaurant 2 years after I retired. He approached my table with a big smile. "Dorothy, you look wonderful. I heard things turned around for you." "They did," I said. "I'm glad. You know, we've restructured the creative department. Could use someone with institutional knowledge." "If you're interested, I'm not," I said, "but I appreciate the offer." His smile faltered. He wasn't used to people saying no. Here's what I learned from my experiment. Most people care about you in proportion to what you can do for them. When you're useful, when you have a title, connections, resources, you'll have plenty of friends. The moment you lose those things or appear to, those friends evaporate, but a few people are rare. Precious few care about you because of who you are, not what you have. They stay when everyone else leaves. They bring you sandwiches and coffee and rosaries. They clean up after your retirement party when they could be anywhere else. Those are your people. Invest in them. After I've retired, I started a small foundation. Nothing fancy, but real. The Dorothy Washington Fund for people who give a damn. The criteria are simple. You have to nominate someone who helped you when you had nothing to offer in return. Then I help them with whatever they need: tuition, business loans, legal fees, medical bills. Kelly runs the foundation now. She got her design degree and uses it to create our materials. Marcus's agency does our branding for free. Dolores's daughter works as our translator and community liaison. We've helped 47 people in the past 5 years. A single mom who needed car repairs to keep her job. A veteran who needed first and last month's rent. A teenager who needed a laptop for school. Small things that are actually everything. People ask me why I don't donate to bigger charities, more established causes. Because big charities don't know who stayed to clean up, I say. I'm 68 now. I wake up without an alarm, drink coffee on my balcony, and spend my days helping people who help people. I don't miss Caldwell and Associates. I don't miss the performance of being important. I don't miss meetings where people spoke over me or campaigns that other people took credit for. What I miss, sometimes, is the version of myself who believed that 38 years of loyalty meant something to people who measured loyalty in quarterly earnings. But mostly, I don't miss anything, because I learned the most important lesson of my professional life on the last day of it. The people who stay when you're broke or think you are the only ones who mattered when you were rich. Last week, Kelly called me. "Dorothy, I have a weird question." "Go ahead." "If I threw you a party like an unretirement party to celebrate you actually being okay, would you come?" "Who would be invited?" "Just us. Me, Marcus, Dolores, and her daughter. Simone, maybe James from your old building. He always asks about you." "James. He said you always remembered his name." I thought about that for a moment. A security guard I'd said good morning to for 6 years. "Invite him," I said. The party was small. 8 people in Kelly's backyard. No catering, no speeches, no gift cards. Just tacos from a food truck and a playlist Simone made called Songs Dorothy Actually Likes, which turned out to be a lot of Motown and a surprising amount of Cardi B. We ate. We laughed. We told stories. Marcus recounted the retirement party from his perspective. I looked around and realized 70 people had shown up to take selfies with the free shrimp. Dolores's daughter translated while Dolores described the first time she left me coffee. I see her face, so tired. I think she'll need coffee. So I make. James told a story I didn't know. "You always said good morning and used my name." Most people don't even look at security guards. One morning I was having the worst day. My mom was sick. I was broke. I was thinking about quitting. And you said, "Good morning, James. Cold out there today. You stay warm." It wasn't anything big, but it mattered. I felt that crack in my chest again. The one that lets light in and tears out simultaneously. "I wish I could say I was being strategic," I told them. "Like I knew this would matter someday. But I wasn't. I just treated you like people." "That's the strategy," Kelly said. "Most people don't." At the end of the night, Simone pulled me aside. "Mom, I'm proud of you." "For what?" "For testing them. For figuring out what mattered. For not spending your retirement pretending to like people who didn't show up." "It was risky," I admitted. "What if nobody had stayed?" "Then you would have known that too," she said. "And you could have stopped wasting energy on people who didn't care." She was right. The test wasn't cruel. It was necessary. Because I'd spent 38 years in a building full of people who would applaud my work, attend my party, and vanish the moment I couldn't advance their careers. I'm writing this now because someone asked me to speak at a retirement seminar. They want me to talk about preparing for the next chapter. I said yes, but I'm not going to talk about 401ks or bucket lists or staying active. I'm going to tell them about the retirement party where 70 people came for free shrimp and 3 people stayed to clean up. I'm going to tell them that before you retire, you should test your relationships. Not cruelly, but honestly. See who stays when you're no longer useful. Because the rest of your life is too short to spend it on people who only liked you. When you could do something for them, I'm going to tell them that wealth isn't about the number in your bank account. It's about knowing exactly who to. Call at 3 a.m. and having them actually answer. I'm going to tell them that I spent the first 63 years of my life accumulating success and the last 5 learning that success without people who genuinely care about you is just expensive loneliness. And I'm going to tell them that the best investment I ever made wasn't a stock or a property or a retirement fund. It was 3 people who stayed late on a Friday night to help a colleague they thought had lost everything because they didn't know I was testing them. They just knew I needed help, and they stayed.